Hello, fourth graders. This is Mr. Headington with your Week 8 health assignment. This week's assignment is kind of an important one that I would like to make sure that everyone's taking it seriously and is being smart about things as they think about what they need to do to be prepared for emergencies. So the main part of our lesson today is on calling 911. 911 is our emergency number that's pretty much throughout the entire United States. And in fact, as in other countries, they might have a slight difference in the numbers they have. So if you travel outside the United States, you might want to review what those are. And 911 service is something that it gets you help when you need it as fast as possible. So for today, I am sharing a quick story, and then I'll give you the directions for your activity or your assignment. And then I have another little part towards the end there that's called the Disaster Master online comic book that will help with being prepared for emergencies. So here's my start of my story. So over here I'll move myself out of the way. Over here on the left side of your screen where it says don't panic, that is kind of hard to do when you're in an emergency situation and you're scared and so on. But I think if you practice these things a little bit, it's a little less scary when you have to do it in real life. So here's my story. When I was 15 years old, I was playing around in my basement and I had golf clubs out and I was swinging a golf club and my brother was coming down the stairs to our basement and I accidentally hit him in the forehead with the golf club when I was swinging it. Cut his head wide open. So my mom was home, but my dad was not. And as my mom came down to help my brother, because my brother wouldn't let me help him, she looked at me and said, go call 911. And I needed to call 911 quickly. We actually had a rotary phone, like what's on the screen here. And that rotary phone, you have to put your finger in the dial to turn it and so on. It's the old-fashioned way. Nowadays, we have push-button phones or you have your cell phones, and there's different ways to call on those. So you might want to kind of check with your parents on how to use the phone effectively or safely so that you can do it when you need to. So as that happened, my mom said, go call 911. I went to the phone, I dialed 911, and I was surprised that I stayed as calm as I did, and I shared the information that you need to share. So as I was on the phone with the 911 operator, they help you go through like what they ask. They'll say, do you have an emergency? Or what's the location of your emergency? And on the second slide, it's on the telephone on your first screen there. The reasons to call are for severe injury like my brother had to his head. Illnesses could be reason to call. Crime is being committed or someone's in danger or there's a fire. So what do you need to say? You don't need to remember these things. They will ask. Just speak clearly and tell them what they need to know. So for me, when I picked up the phone to call 911 and they answered, I immediately said, my name is Mike Headington. I was clear with my first and last name. My location, so I gave them my address of my home, and that was easy for me to remember because I had lived there all of my life. I knew the number of my house and the street it was on, and I told them my phone number next, which was my home phone number. We didn't have cell phone numbers back then, so they had one number to remember. And then I told them what the emergency was. And when I told them that my brother had hurt his head, they asked me kind of a silly question, which was, is he awake or is he asleep? And my thought was, I just hit him in the head with a golf club. He's probably awake. He was awake. But they wanted to know if he was conscious or unconscious, which they would determine how severe the injury is based upon whether that person was awake or asleep or conscious or unconscious. So he was conscious, so they felt like it wasn't as strict of an emergency or dire emergency as it would be if he was unconscious. Not to say that they wouldn't get there faster, but they had to prioritize which emergencies they had. So as I finished on the phone with the 911 operator, they told me don't hang up until they tell me to. And once they got all the information they needed and they relayed it to the police officers and the 911 for the ambulance, then they told me to hang up the phone and go down to the door or to our door to wait for the police officer to get there, knowing my mom was helping my brother. So I hung up the phone. I went down there. Immediately, I heard the sirens, and the police officer pulled up in front of my house. The police officer came in and helped with my mom and my brother. And the police officer told me, wait up here at the door for the ambulance to get here. So I waited at the door. The ambulance drivers came just a couple minutes later, and they were getting my brother in the ambulance as my dad showed up, which I think probably frightened him a bit that something was going on at his house and he didn't know what it was. We didn't have cell phones to call and say, hey, we got an emergency, better get home. So there was no way to connect with him then. Nowadays, with everyone having cell phones, we can communicate pretty quickly, but you still need to be clear on all these things. So in the end, my brother had a couple stitches in his head, and he had a concussion. He needed to rest. He was at the time he was about 9 years old, 9 or 10, and so it was an emergency. It was not severe, but it was something that has stuck with me all of my life. Is that that I could do that to get help anytime I needed. The other thing that's in our slide here on this side, it says, do not call 911 if there is no emergency. See the video below. This video, when it says when not to call 911, isn't about this girl that's hurt when she's swimming. By the way, these are all actors. They're just playing a scene. It's not real life for this, but it seems a little scary. But watch the video and tell me what the people were doing wrong, or it'll be in your response saying, why not? Why shouldn't you call 911? Some people call for ridiculous things that have nothing to do with emergencies. So finally today, when you get done with that slide, you go back to the home one here. You go to your Seesaw assignment and answer the 5 questions, and then you can do the Disaster Master game that's here. The Disaster Master game, I'm going to give you a little preview here. This is a comic book format, and you have levels to read through, and at the end of each level, there's actually questions to earn points. You have to have enough points to get to the last page, and when you get to the last page of the part that's here, you will get a code word or a password for the next level. So there's level 1, you start with that, then you go to level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and you will need a different password for each one. If you get stuck and cannot remember or don't know what the passwords are, you can email me or click on the help button that's on the first slide. I forgot to add that, but I will before I post this. So, and then finally, the 5 questions for your assignment, they are going to be, and these will be in your Seesaw thing, name 3 things for which you might correctly call 911 for. So like, what's the emergency that you're calling for? Name 1 thing for which you would not call 911. Name 4 things you should tell the emergency operator if you have to call 911. And then when talking to the 911 operator, when should you hang up? And finally, number 5 says, if you wanted to call the police for something that is not an emergency, what could you do? The hint on that is there is a non-emergency number to the Sunbury Police Department or Dane County Sheriff's Department or the Madison Police Department, wherever you're living, that would not be the 911 operator. So those are safe numbers to call when you have a question about something, or that you're concerned about something, but it's not quite an emergency. That would be those numbers. So you might need to look around for that one, or have to maybe look it up online. Or we have this old-fashioned thing that's at our house that we still get every year, which is a phone book. And you might find in the phone book there's some emergency numbers. Please don't be goofing around with the numbers that are on there. We do not want to have an issue of somebody calling when they shouldn't need to. But again, if you're a kid and you don't know if it's an emergency or not, please call 911. If you are scared and not sure what it is that's going on, you can call 911. They're not going to get mad at you for that. But you can get in a little trouble if you're just goofing around and calling for no reason. So I hope that you learned some great stuff this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do for your responses. And again, if you need help with the Disaster Master code words, you can send me a message. Have a great week.